Good morning, everyone. I hope everybody's having a great week. Our rain today is such that caught me by surprise. I thought our rainy season was over and we were back into shorts weather and the beach and surfing. So shows you what I know. Um, Today I'm going to be talking about the pros and cons, and there are more cons to seller in possession and buyer in possession. But before I do that, I really just kind of wanted to take a moment and talk about the real estate market in 2019 and throw out what's coming, what I think is going to be coming now through the end of this year. It's interesting that in the last week alone, there have been two very, very positive articles in the Wall Street Journal regarding the real estate market on a nationwide basis. And then there's been actually two very positive articles in the San Diego Union regarding the same topic. So that's what kind of directed me to want to at least make a comment about it today before I move on to the other topic. Interest rates are going down. I mean, who can believe that? At the beginning of the year, we all thought that rates were going to be coming up, not only be raised once in 2019, but a couple of times. The Fed was saying that we're going to be increasing the rates. Well, with the economy slowing down and real estate slowing down, the Fed had a second thought about that. And then actually about 2, 3, maybe even a month ago, they announced they would not be raising any more of the interest rates now through the end of the year, which was a very positive effect. And I was very happy to see that because I knew it would have a good effect on our real estate market here in Southern California. And then last weekend, I was reading one of the positive articles, and it stated that the 30-year fixed rate loan is moving down, is closer to 4% right now. So again, another very positive move that will assist us as agents in real estate in making our sales and moving the market so we can all move product and as a result of that earn more income. What those articles said in a nutshell is that the beginning of the second half of the second quarter, you're going to start seeing a sharp increase in production, real estate moving, number one. Going into the third quarter, real estate market should be at its peak for the year. So, again, be prepared, because with real estate moving, you want to be able to jump in and catch the wave coming in. And then in the beginning of the fourth quarter, same story. It looks like we're going to have, at least in the beginning of the fourth quarter, a very good real estate market, and that will tail off into the end of the year, the holidays and so forth. But, keep in mind, I always did my best real estate and sold most of my product when I was in production during the holidays. Because I knew the buyers I was working with were the most serious. They wouldn't be out looking during the holidays if they didn't need to be in a home before the end of the year or right after the first of the year. So, keep that in mind. Don't let your foot off the gas pedal because you think, well, it's the holidays. Don't let your thoughts kind of creep into what you think others are thinking. So anyway, please keep that in mind. Beginning the second half of the second quarter, third quarter, and into the fourth quarter, I'm thinking with the interest rates going down, we're going to have a good real estate market. So be prepared. Right now is the time to start doing what you need to do to be prepared for that good market. You need to be setting your schedule up, your daily schedule, and don't let anything get in the way of it. Contact your previous clients, even those that you may not have talked to in a couple of years. Now's the time to start doing it. You don't want to call them right away and start beating them over the head about buying or selling. You want to talk to them and let them know you do care about them, because you do. So make sure you get in touch with them, find out how they're doing, how their families are doing, what's coming up in their life this year. And then through that process, you're going to determine what their thoughts are regarding their current residence. Are they going to stay in it? Are they going to upgrade it? Are they going to sell it? Are they looking to get into another area of town, another school district perhaps? So now's the time to be actively out doing the basics for your business and preparing for a better market. Now's the time to do it. even start setting up your website so that through your websites you're going to be able to reach out to your clients and make friends with them on Facebook, for example. And then as you start publishing and sending out different comments regarding the real estate market, how well it's doing, how well you're doing, again, that message will get across to your clients that are on your Facebook page because you're posting comments. Don't be obnoxious with it. I know a couple of agents that send out something every day. That's not necessary, but you definitely want to post 2 or 3 times a week so that, again, you're keeping your name, your face out there and what you do for a living. Start a newsletter. Get a newsletter going out to your friends and contacts and clients. Keep them up to date on what's going on real estate in general. There's a lot to talk about today in today's real estate world. So take advantage of that. Let the people know that you are up to date in your profession, that you know what you're talking about, and regardless of their needs, real estate wise, you are the person to go to. Training classes. We do an excellent job here at Allison James with respect to training classes. What's great about us is that you're going to be able to tune us in when it's convenient for you during the course of a day. So it doesn't get in the way of your not cold calling, but your calling of clients and friends and relatives. And it's not going to get in the way of your farming. So make sure that you tune into our educational classes and web classes so that you can be kept up to date, number one. And number two, it gives you material to put into your newsletter to talk about when you do call your clients and your relatives and friends talking about real estate. So please do that. Keep an eye on interest rates. People are always interested in that in your farm area. Get out there and, again, back in the area, get into the area where you want to sell product, and make sure your face and your name and your personality gets known there so that people, when they think they're going to sell their home or are considering it or giving it some thought, now, even if it's a year away, you still want to groom your business in today's world. So, if the client says, listen, Tom, I'm not going to be selling for a year, but I'd like to kind of get a feel for the market. I want you to look at the house. Tell me what you might need for me to do so that when I do put it on the market, it'll show well, I'll get top dollar for it, and we can all move on. So, keep those appointments. Go out there, talk to them, because those people know other people who are in the real estate that are friends of theirs who might be selling in a more immediate fashion. And so, again, you just want to make sure you're up to date on not only your client's world, but people they know world as well. Because if you can get a lead off of that, that would be perfect. And that's the point of everything we do. Speaking of training, I am doing monthly coffees around the city. Last month, in the month of March, I met with more than a half a dozen agents in Solana Beach. We had a good session. We started at 10. We were done by 11:30. And I don't have any set topic. I bring conversation pieces with me so we can discuss that. But more importantly, I'd like you to bring in some topics as well. Something that you don't quite understand, something you'd like more information on, and so that we can discuss it in an open forum with a half a dozen or more agents. Now, in the month of April, I'm going to be in San Marcos. Later this week, I'm going to be announcing the date, location, and time, and I hope to see all the North San Diego County people there. So again, we can get to know each other better than we know each other already, and have a great conversation about real estate. In May, I'm going to be in South San Diego, and again, there'll be more information upcoming on that as well. Now is the time to do your business building. Now is the time to set your schedule, keep to your schedule, and don't get distracted. Because with the market coming up, and hopefully a good market, which is all the indicators are that it will be a good market, now's the time to take advantage of it and be prepared to act in a positive manner and be prepared for added business coming your way. So again, that's what I have to throw out on that. My topic today is going to be seller in possession, buyer in possession. My first comment on that is avoid at all costs. There are very few topics in real estate that I think are bad news, and seller in possession and buyer in possession are bad news. I know there's extenuating circumstances, and probably a lot of you have had those extenuating circumstances. But I just wanted to discuss not a document today, not a form today, but just kind of quickly go through a bullet point presentation on why I believe it's a bad thing to have happen in a transaction, and some of the downfalls to that. Keep in mind, keep emotion out of it. So if you have the seller and the buyer's agent comes to you and the buyer wants to get in early, we're not in a position to say, no way, take your offer somewhere else. I mean, we have to present everything to our seller. But when we do that presentation to the seller, we can say, listen, there are a lot of bad reasons for this to happen. And I understand that families don't like to move twice, but, a lot of the times in my experience, when a buyer has asked to move into a home early prior to the close of escrow, it's because their lender has not performed properly, and it's delayed the close of escrow, and now the buyer's getting panicked because they want to get their kids in school or whatever other reason. They don't want to move twice, they have health reasons, whatever the case might be. But it's never a good idea. I mean, buyer in possession, what can happen? Adverse possession. And that happens on both sides of this equation, but adverse possession on the buyer side. There was an article in the San Diego Union earlier this month, actually about 2 weeks ago, that talked about adverse possession in the Sunday paper. And it can take up to 6 months to get a person out of a home in an adverse possession situation if that person knows how to play the game. So you have to keep that in mind. The transaction's gone smooth. The buyers are great people. They met the sellers, which is, again, another not good idea. And the other agent's perfect and everything is going good and the kids need to start school. And, what's another week or two? Well, the problem with that is the buyer might get moved in, even with a rental agreement or buyer in possession agreement, and find there's an issue or an element of the home that they don't like. Could be anything. It could be that the street's busier than they thought it was going to be. It could be they met their neighbors and they don't like their neighbors. It could be electrical or plumbing issues. They thought everything was fine, and now they're finding that there might be an issue or two, and they just decide they don't like the area. It's not as convenient as they thought it was to the husband's work, to the wife's work, to the kids, whatever the case might be. So, again, those are real life issues that I have seen, and based on my experience, where escrow and buyers and sellers lose track of the transaction. Buyers move out, they don't close escrow. There's a big fight over the deposit. There's reasons why the buyer, and they always try to go back to the contract for their reason for canceling. But, again, a lot of this can be avoided if buyer in possession does not take hold. You want to make sure, with a buyer in possession too, that your seller doesn't get held hostage, because once the buyer gets in, they can start saying, well, I want this, I need that. Before I can close, I really need the seller to, give me more money, whatever the case might be. You just have to be very, very careful about buyer in possession. Make sure that anytime, whether it's a buyer or a seller is going to be in possession, either before or after escrow, you have a good rental agreement completed and signed by both parties. If it's a buyer in possession, you definitely want to make sure that that if the escrow doesn't close by a certain date, that there's going to be a fee charged to the buyer. And you want to make it a healthy fee, $200 a day. And the reason for that is that if a buyer becomes an adverse possession type buyer, you want to make sure that the seller has some type of financial recuperation available to them. And if you just let them move in without a rental agreement, or if you say no rent, don't worry about it, then there is no financial recuperation for the seller. So make sure you have a rental agreement, even if there's no rent being charged for a period of up to the close of escrow, that's fine. But make sure the day after that date, there's a healthy penalty for the buyer to pay. And that way, if the seller has to go through an eviction process, and that takes anywhere from 90 days to 6 months, that there will be some type of financial recovery for the seller on this. Going back to the last thing on buyer or seller in possession, you want to make sure that there's a healthy holdback in escrow for that period of time. That can be used if the buyer goes in early. That way, if the buyer moves out and wrecks the home, which has happened, then the seller has some financial recovery immediately from escrow to take care of those damages. And that will be considered, that holdback in escrow will be considered like a security deposit in case damage happens. Seller in possession, again, the same thing. You want to avoid at all costs. Adverse possession. Again, if your buyer closes, escrow does everything perfect, and the seller wants 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, whatever the case might be, to move out, there's no reason for that. The seller, if they want to sell their home and they want to move on with their life, then they should have no issue with the fact that they need to move out on that closing date. They have until 5 o'clock or until the end of the day. But beyond the closing date of the escrow, you don't want to have a seller in possession for basically the same reasons you got for the buyers. Things happen. If I've got a case going on now with an agent where the escrow was scheduled to close last Friday. It was a private road. On Thursday, a sinkhole developed. There was a main leak with the water supply coming into the private road, and there was a sinkhole. Well, it's a private road. There are 3 neighbors. There's no written agreement between the neighbors, and the neighbors are saying, yeah, we'll get it fixed. You can just drive around the sinkhole until we, get in a position where we want to fix it. Obviously, the buyer's not happy with that. Unfortunately, we have the seller. And so now we're fighting our way through that. You never know what's going to happen in a transaction. And with the seller, it could be a health issue that prevents them from moving out on the agreed upon date. It could be any number of things that happen. Their moving van, they can't get that scheduled on that date. And so they don't start moving out till the day after that date. Again, put the seller in a rental agreement, have an agreed upon end date for that agreement. If there is financial hardship for the seller beginning the date when the rental is agreed upon, then again, make sure there's a penalty so the buyer can recover if need be, if they have to go through the eviction process that takes anywhere from 90 days to 6 months. So again, you want to just protect your client and avoid at all costs buyer in possession, seller in possession. Negotiate up front. A lot of these seller and buyer in possessions come in, after escrow's in place. There's no mention of seller or buyer in possession up front. And so you just want to make sure that if they come to you at a later date, the buyer seller doesn't have to agree to it. It's a new term, it's a new condition for the transaction, and they have the option of agreeing to it or not. My suggestion is don't agree to it. There are enough other things that come in to play that it could turn is a good situation into a bad situation. So avoid it at all costs. Make sure that once that date is agreed upon, that there's a holdback of seller funds in escrow, again, acting as a security deposit. So if the seller, when they do move out, if they don't clean the house up properly, leave a lot of debris in the house, cause damage to the house when they do move out, whatever they do move out, you want to make sure our buyer has the proper protection, financially speaking, to be able to recover and do what's necessary to bring the home up to the condition that it was when they first initially saw the home and decided to make the purchase. So that's what I have for today. It's not, again, it's not a good idea, seller or buyer in possession. You have a seller who wants to sell the house and move on. As an agent, listing agent, make sure they do that. If they say, well, I might need an extra week or two, No. Just explain to them all the problems and the necessary and how it's going to tie up their funds. And again, if the buyer, in negotiations up front, if the seller say, I need it a week, you want to negotiate that out if at all possible. And keep in mind, if you're not able to negotiate it out, and if it's going to happen anyway, make sure you have financial penalties for either the buyer or seller in the case of adverse possession. Thank you for listening today. I look forward to our next presentation, and with the real estate market picking up, take advantage of it. Now's the time to be prepared to take advantage of the market. Thank you. Bye-bye.